Okay, we're live.
Today is February 20th, 2013, and we got the Revenue Enhancement Committee meeting. Those of us that are attending from the board are Frank Saramonero, Andrew Basil, Mike Wolf, Dr. Otto is here, I'm Monica Hamill, and presenting tonight will be Jeff from the...
And Connor Kurtz.
Oh, Connor Kurtz. I'm sorry, Connor. Jeff will be presenting from the Market Street Sports Group, and we can start.
You may want to mention that Andrew's here as a member of the public.
Andrew's here as a member of the public, and we also have people in the audience.
About 10.
Well, good evening.
If we have 5 minutes, including.
Oh, okay.
As you said, I'm Jeff Bertoni. I'm the president of sales and one of the owners of Market Street Sports Group. Going to go through a quick PowerPoint for you, but really, I've done this so many times. Honestly, I'm open to questions. Pepper me with whatever you really want to know about alternative streams of revenue as far as sponsorship is concerned. My goal here tonight is really just to give you guys the information and help you with whatever route you decide to go. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Market Street route. We've got lots of different people around the state who are doing it in a lot of different ways, so I want to just give you the information more than anything else. But as far as Market Street is concerned, we got started about 6 years ago. The principal members of Market Street are myself, my business partner Jason Jessberger, and my other business partner Frank Hope. Jason and I are both former teachers. I taught for 15 years in Montgomery County, Maryland. He taught for about 7 or 8 years in Manheim Township, and Frank is our chief financial officer. He retired from ITT and has been working with us since then as our accounting wing of the whole thing. But basically, we got started in minor league baseball. We brought the Lancaster Barnstormers baseball team to market now about 9 years ago. Worked for them for the first 2 years, doing all their corporate sponsorship, advertising sales, all the on-field entertainment for them, and then also all the marketing for them. After doing that for 2 years, we then broke away, started with the PIAA, doing all the high school championships. So if you've ever been out to any of the championships around the area, we've been there either hanging the banners, getting the sponsorship, people set, everything and anything you can think of. And we've been doing that for the PIAA for the last now 6, almost 7 years. What we then, beyond the PIAA, started doing was getting involved with individual school districts and helping them raise alternative streams of revenue through sponsorship. It's not the typical sponsorship where you just hang a banner and kind of walk away from it. In our experience, we found that that's not very productive for the sponsor. When we go out to different school districts and we look and we see that you've got a football field ringed with different banners, and then we start to ask, well, are you still collecting revenue from that one? It looks kind of worn, and they don't know. They just hang them, they collect the $250 or $500, and it kind of just goes from there. It's not a real partnership. So we kind of revolutionized things, and with the help of the Hempfield School District in Lancaster, started putting together a program where we give a sponsor the naming rights to something on campus, whether it's a gymnasium, like we did when we were working with the Wilson School District. It became the Discovery Federal Credit Union Gymnasium. It might be a baseball field, it might be a soccer field, it might be a press box, it can be any number of things. And from there, we're then able to come up with about 15 different items that the sponsor would have, everything from PA announcements at different events, to program ads, working with the booster clubs, just a variety of different things that allow the sponsor to get additional bang for their buck beyond just that $250 or $500 sponsorship. So the typical sponsorship runs anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, depending on the venue, depending on the amount of impressions they're able to get, those kinds of things. And what we're able to do is we help schools with their capital budgets. We're right now working with the Dallastown School District. They're trying to turf their field, and they're trying to raise quite a bit of money to do that. So we're on board with that, bringing in sponsors to help with that. We help create mentoring programs, facility upgrades, booster club discounts, all those kinds of things. And we've done things where we've done gymnasiums, parking lots, just a gamut of things that we've done. We've got a ton of sponsors that are currently working with it. But what you're going to find is, and the reason I use this slide more than anything, they're localized sponsors. What we're looking for are your local oil company, your local.
Oh, you just hit quit.
Quit. All right.
That's one of those automatic.
Your local car dealership, your local nationwide agent, law firm. Those are the kinds of folks who are getting involved with this, and it's not going to be your Nikes or Adidas or your huge companies like that. There are companies out there that are going into school districts and trying to let them know that, hey, we're going to get Fortune 500 companies involved with you. Typically what happens with that is the Fortune 500 companies, or your AT&Ts, things like that, they're going to give you the typical banner that you're going to hang in gymnasium and get $500 for. What they're trying to do is eat up districts all over the place, and then with those districts they dole out little bits to the districts based on the overall picture that they're able to create. We're really grassroots more than the top-down model that is. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. What we're really able to offer is active engagement more than anything else. I think if you come out to any of the school districts that we work with, we now work with about 8 different school districts, you're going to find different things that we're able to put together, whether it's giving the parents a break in the concession stand during senior night, having the local electric company come out and work in the concession stand, or doing a player of the game, setting up different events. That's really what the sponsors are looking to do, and that's what we try and put together through the packages that we are doing. The things that naming rights allow us to do, capture more revenue, obviously, because we're putting a name on something, whether it's a field or concession stand or whatever. The sponsors are able to do that. Sponsors obviously see a benefit in it because they're getting a broad range. We're not really going after the students, and that comes from our own educational background. We get a little resistance from folks because they feel like, you're pimping out the kids, or, we're going to start plastering things all over classrooms. That's not really what this is about. We're trying to get to the parents. We're trying to get to the grandparents. We're trying to get the aunts and uncles, the folks who come out to it and are going to spend the money on their, the oil or their produce or those kinds of things. That's who we're trying to get through this program more than the kids. As part of the active engagement, we might do anything from website advertising to in-game promotions, district-wide mailings. We've had success at some school districts doing things that are geared towards the staff. So if there's an oil change that the local car dealership is doing and the staff can have their car picked up at school, taken, the oil change is done, then the car is brought back and dropped off for them during the school day. Staff gets a discount as a result of it. The staff loves that. They don't have to deal with it. The car dealership loves it because now there's a partnership that's able to do that. So those are things that we're looking to try and do with our typical sponsorships in making that happen. Other things that we're able to do and strengths of this, obviously there's a money side to this, and I'll be totally honest. We get a variety of responses at the districts that we have. I wish I could say it's one size fits all, but it's not. We get started at districts, and we have some districts where it takes off, and we get 7 sponsors within the first 6, 7, 8 months, and we've had success at the Lambert Strasburg School District in that way. We have some districts where we work for a full year, and we might only have 1 sponsor. Governor Mifflin's an example of that. I've been working with them for a year now, which surprised me because we were originally involved with the Wilson School District, and we had about 7 or 8 sponsors there, and we figured Governor Mifflin makes sense. They're right next to them. They should be able to do the same thing, and it just hasn't been the case. So it's really a crapshoot as far as what you're going to get. I wish I could say that it's a revenue stream that's guaranteed, but it's not. You really have to work with the school district and with the community to try and put these partnerships together, and that's kind of what we are trying to do more than anything. And sometimes we have success at some districts, and it works very, very well. What we have to do and what we do with the districts, we work with the school boards themselves. We obviously have a vast experience in this. We have the ability to get at a niche group that really isn't being hit by anybody right now. It's very different than anything else that's out there. We can have an effect on students as we do this if we want to. At some school districts, we've had different credit unions who've gotten involved and opened up branches in the school districts. Typically, credit unions have gotten involved in districts. They open up the branches, but the district doesn't get anything out of it. The credit union is just doing the district a favor, and we've now come in and said, there's no favor going on here. You know, they're taking this space just like they would if they were going to go to the local grocery store and set up a credit union. They should be paying for that space through a sponsorship and then get the credit union branch as part of that. So we've been able to do that. We've also been able to get the students involved in the sponsorships themselves, designing collateral pieces for us or getting involved in other ways. Key to this is board approved. Everything that we do goes through a committee. The committee is usually made up of the superintendent, business director, perhaps a board member or two. They have the pulse of the board and know what's going to happen with it. So we then would go out, we create all the marketing pieces that we use, we create the inventory that we're going to sell from. All of that goes in front of the board for approval. And what that means is if we send our inventory to the board and they decide, you know, we don't want to do anything inside our school building, we want it to be all exterior things, that's fine. We're willing to work with that, and you know, we accept that. We've had some districts that say, you know, we want everything, including our district building, name it, do whatever you can do. So, you know, we're open to that. So the board has final say on what we're able to sell. We certainly guide them as far as the prices of all the different things that we're looking at. It's difficult to set a price on a lot of things because, you know, it's what a company's willing to pay more than anything else. So we can say that the stadium is really well used. It gets more than 500,000 people to come through it. And if you compare that to any minor league stadium, there should be an equal payment as far as that's concerned. But you know, a minor league stadium has a lot more glitz and glamour than a high school stadium does. So it's hard to get a company to see that. So a lot of times you end up taking a lot less than you would expect, but you do have the money coming in. So, you know, if you get $25,000 for a stadium for a 5-year period per year, I'm happy with that, and we're willing to take that. But again, those numbers go back to the board for final approval. If the board decides, you know, it's not enough money for us, we're going to let it go, then you let it go, and that's the way it is. No harm, no foul. We don't have any problem with it. All of the proposals themselves, we go out and solicit into the community. We obviously ask for help from the community and the board to give us ideas of who to go to and who to talk to, the big players within the community. We go out, have the meetings with them. We suggest things for them. From that, we then put the proposals together, get that in front of the committee, who then approves the different items that we have within the proposal. It goes back to the sponsor. They then approve it. We then write up the contract that then goes in front of the board, and it's then finally approved. All the signage, all the fulfillment, everything that happens with it goes through our company. We make sure all of that's done for you. The only folks who really need to then get involved generally are the athletic director and the business director as far as the finances and as far as the fulfillment, making sure announcements are made and things like that. So that's kind of the easy part of it. Again, all the different items that we do are the 12 items that are there. The things that the district does for us, assigning a point person for approvals and meetings, developing and approve the contracts, and enabling us to access the community as far as the district property. That's kind of the ins and outs of it. I know I went through it really, really quickly, but that's what we do. Typically, with every district we work with, it's a 70-30 split. We take 30%, the district gets 70% of that. The reality of that number is we actually end up only taking about 22 to 25%, because with every sponsorship that we build, we make sure that some of the money goes back to booster clubs in the form of program advertisements. Whether it's the theater boosters or the football boosters, we spread it evenly out through all of the boosters. And what we find is when we originally come into a community, the soccer team might have been doing some type of sponsorships on their own for years, and now we come in and say, hey, we're going to be taking this over and doing this for the district. We don't want a bad taste in the soccer team's mouth, so we're then coming to them and saying, listen, we're still going to, from our sponsors, we're still going to purchase from you Booster Club ads, full-page ads for our sponsors or half-page ads for our sponsors, so that you guys still get some money off the top and you don't have to worry about it anymore. We're paying for 30% of that out of the top of it, so we actually lose a little bit of it, but it works out for everybody. So that's kind of the ins and outs of it. I also brought a couple of copies of kind of an overview that I'll leave for you guys. But I'll open it up to question. I mean, I'm here for you guys to kind of...
Are there any upfront costs by the school district?
No, there are no upfront costs for the school district. The only thing that we do is the district needs to develop a policy as far as advertising within the district. There's a three-party agreement that's done between us, the district, and the sponsor, and there's also an agreement between us and the district. Those two agreements are usually done by the districts themselves so that they have their interest at heart and they are able to produce those. Most of the districts use the same solicitors, it seems like. We run into it all the time. I was talking to the solicitor today from Pottstown, and he was saying that he also handles Pottsgrove. We're already in at Pottsgrove, so can we use the same documents that Pottsgrove does? Absolutely, use them. So
step me through it so I understand it. We would enter into a contract with you for a set time period?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And what's the next step? You would meet with us and we would tell you about some of our local industry here?
The next step would be for us to come out and take a tour of the district. Once we get the contract together, we tour the district, hopefully with some of the folks who are in the know. They give us an idea of where we could put things. We would take measurements and everything. From there, we would want to meet with as many people as we possibly could who could give us an idea of the right people to go to within the community. Because, having the superintendent make the introduction for us is a lot better than us just making a cold call on somebody and saying, hey, we really want you to support the district. Well, if he calls, he's known in the district. Everybody knows who he is. So that helps us a lot, getting that first meeting and getting us through the door. So that's the next step beyond that. Once we get the piece in place that says, here's everything we're able to do, the next step then would be to try and figure out what the best course of action would be. And that's where
then all the work that you do, all of it comes out of that 30%?
Correct. There's no cost to the district at all for anything we do. And realistically, if after the first 3-year period, most of the districts work with us for 3 years, knowing that it's going to take at least 6 months to a year to get those first couple of things to even happen because it takes time to build steam with this. But if after the first year or two, the district feels like, we want to take a different direction. We want to just sell ads around our stadium and do the $500 per ad. If the district decides that, they give us 30 to 60 days notice, everything's done.
So if we were to enter into like a 3-year contract with you, I would assume first you would come and do what you said and just do a tour.
Correct.
So you'd understand sort of what
we're getting into ahead
what you're
of time.
getting into.
Right.
And then at that point, when you want to enter into a contract, are you willing to sign up for service level agreements for a 3-year period?
We sign up for 3 years, and we are working for the district for that 3-year period. So
what if you don't sell anything in a year and a half? Is there some service level agreement that we can say, look, it's not working out, we need to figure out a way to...
Absolutely. You haven't spent any money. There's no risk to you. So after that year and a half, if you guys decide, we want to take it a different direction, then we just void the contract and we're out of it. Which we've done at other... I've cards on the table. We've had districts where Octorara, for example, I don't know if you've ever been out to Gap. Gap's out... Octorara is out in the middle of cornfields. It's nowhere.
That's what people say about where we are.
I hope we don't put where. I'm telling you, it really, there's nothing out there. And when we got involved with Octorara, they didn't have a football team at the time, and literally, nothing. Mm-hmm. So we didn't. It was the first year we were in existence. We didn't want to say no to a school district, so we said, sure, we'll take you on. Well, then we started making calls, and there's one car dealership in Gap, Apple Auto. That's it. And, so to say to them, you really need to support the district, they said, we already have everybody in the district. They all come to us anyway. We don't need to do any extra advertising. Yeah. So it's real hard for us to get any traction there. And after the 3-year period, the contract was just voided. Now, they could have ended it earlier, but they said, why should we? You guys already have put everything together. It's on your website. Just leave it there and let's see if anything happens. So we've had that happen. We've had other districts where A good example is Central York School District. We got involved with them. We got a first contract in place, and then they started to get cold feet about it and said, we're not sure whether we want to sell our stadium, and started to get harder and harder to move things through. They had a couple of board members change, and after a year's time, they said, you know what, we're going to pay you. We have a 3-year deal with one of the sponsors. We're going to pay you the money to get out of that sponsorship. We'll continue it and finish it out, but now we're done and we can do our own thing. We were fine with that. I mean,
give me an idea if you can, and you don't have to name names
Sure.
of school districts or anything, but give me just an example of some of the dollars
Absolutely.
that came out of, say, the naming rights to an auditorium.
Yep. Hempfield has been our most successful school district by far. They have been able to do about $150,000 a year. That's gross. And they have everything named there from the stadium, which is $25,000 a year, to their press box, which is $11,000 a year, to their softball fields and baseball fields. I mean, we've named all of them. But like I said, everything starts at about a $5,000 reference point, and we move up from there, and we base it on number of impressions and those kinds of things. We've had some success lately at the lower end, because the economy being what it is, we have a lot of companies who are really willing to spend that lower amount. We try and get 3-year deals, but we've had companies who've come forward and said, listen, I want to do a 1-year deal with a right to renew in every successive year, and we've had success with that, and it works. So that's at one school district. We have other school districts like Lancaster-Strasburg, like I said. They've had everything from their press box to their baseball field now to their stadium. And again, it's tough because you really are comparing apples to oranges there. If you look at what J.K. Mechanical Stadium looks like versus Georgia List Stadium, J.K. Mechanical Stadium is a grass field. It's barely got a fence around it. It's really a much older stadium, but J.K. Mechanical put their name on it for $15,000 a year. The Georgia List Stadium, we got $25,000 for. We've had at Pottsgrove, I showed you their gymnasium. Tri-County Federal Credit Union pays $20,000 a year for their gymnasium, and as part of that, they also get the branch within the school district, so they're getting additional benefit from that. Governor Mifflin, Dairy Queen's a sponsor there of their auxiliary field. Below the scoreboard, they have a sign that is double-faced, and you can see it from the stands of the football stadium, or you can see it when you're in the auxiliary field. They're spending $5,000 a year. So it's really kind of all over the place. And like I said, different levels of success at every school district. And a lot of times I'm surprised. We got involved and are involved right now with the West Shore School District, which is a huge school district. 2 high schools right in York and in right outside of Harrisburg. So it's a huge area. And in 6 months, I haven't had a nibble. I can't get anybody even to look at it, and I have no idea why. I really don't. It's not for lack of trying, but it's just the kind of thing where they've already sold a couple of signs for $1,000, and I don't know if that's a piece of it. People look at that and say, well, why do I want to spend $5,000 when I can just be in the stadium for $1,000? And all those have to expire before we can really hit anything. But like I said, at Conestoga Valley School District, we have 8 or 9 sponsors. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, you might think you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you might have, some alumni who come forward and say, I could give to the district, but I don't get anything for that. So if I at least do this, I am giving to the district. Money's going to fund things in the district, but I'm getting my name on something, and I get all the advertising benefit of it also. So they're not certainly taking it as a charitable contribution. They're taking it as marketing dollars, but they're at least getting something for that contribution. So it's a benefit to it.
Sounds great.
When you get someone's interested in saying the naming rights for a library or an auditorium, there's a sign or something obviously they're going to have to put their name on.
Yes.
Well, that's something that physically got to be mounted to the structure.
Correct.
How does that happen? Is that something that we would be responsible for mounting and
Typically,
maintaining?
we have a sign company that comes out and will mount and maintain everything. A lot of times, if it's just a windscreen or something that's easy, I'll come out myself and hang it. And then if there's any damage to it, like when we had Hurricane Sandy roll through, we had windscreens that were all over the place down, and I was running around all over different counties rehanging signs, and it's fence ties, and it's easy stuff. If it's being hard mounted to the district in some way, sometimes the building maintenance crew gets involved with it. I had an example up there of the signs that are the light pole banners. At some districts, they've got a truck that they were able to go up and do that, and we were able to save the install because it was cheaper for the district to do it than it was to have an install company come out and do it. So there are a lot of different ways that we can do it. We're bonded, so we make sure that any problems we have, we can take care of, and if there's any damage or anything, we can take care of that on our end too.
Mike, our policy on naming rights and advertising address the district's discretion in terms of what happens to the facility. So we would have by policy, and naturally just because we own the property, certainly a right to weigh in on that and make sure that we would ensure our property and its integrity before we would put anything up.
Right.
I don't have the policy in front of me, but it does address that already.
And I'm dealing with it right now at Hempfield School District. We had one of the things that they had done, their field house needed a new roof, and they didn't have any money in their account for a new roof. So a local roofing company said, well, we're willing to put the roof on and we'll trade the money out for it, and we want the sponsorship. So as part of the sponsorship, they got 2 roof signs that were put up. We had a sign company come out, put the signs up, and they put up an aluminum type product, and it was welded onto the roof with beams and everything. The winds have been so high lately that it's ripped part of the signs off now, and now the district's come back and said, we don't like having aluminum up there because if it comes off and hits a car in the parking lot or whatever, we don't want to have the risk of that. So we're now in the process of taking those signs down, refacing it with a windscreen product so that it's then taken care of. And again, all of that falls on us to do. We take care of it. The district recommended it. We try something different. But they were in the original, design of the signs as far as the layout. A lot of school districts look at us and say, hey, we want the sponsor on it, but we want also to keep our identity too. So we want to have on the sign something that represents us. So we now have a lot of districts where we're doing that for. So, for the LS baseball field that we're getting ready to do, we realized the back of their scoreboard, there's nothing on it, but it faces the stadium. So now there's going to be the LS baseball symbol on one side and now the Strasburg Family Eye Care on the other side. So we're able to do that. But the district has final say on everything that we do.
And the sponsor pays the district, and then we pay you your piece of that? How's that work?
The sponsor pays us. We take care of all of the billing. We take care of all of the collection and all of the payments that go out as far as booster clubs or to sign companies or anything like that. We take care of all of that. And then after we've made collection within 15 days, a reclamation comes out to the district's business office along with a check for payment. So we're able to keep track of everything that the district's able to get, and we run it through our office.
Yeah, please.
Questions from the public?
Yeah.
Would we be able to get our hands on, if we sign an NDA or something like that, your tri-party agreement and your basic contracts that you use?
Actually, those are controlled right now by the Hempfield School District,
Okay.
but it's all sunshine, so you could easily go onto their website and find it. I could get it for if you really, really wanted it. I could get it for you. It's not a problem.
Have you been fairly successful going out of the school district, like say with us here and say related neighborhood schools, with say car dealerships? Obviously, we virtually got no business. What success have you had going to those dealers coming to us versus say Exeter School or O&J Roberts?
Honestly, you don't know until you start trying to sell it. I mean, it's you've got a built-in audience here. So it's you have with an auto dealership, it's all territorial. So you have to look at where their territory falls and who you fall within. I know at Conestoga Valley, for example, they have two different Toyota dealerships that fall within their area. But the high school happens to fall on Lancaster Toyota's area, and New Holland Toyota is the upper part of the district. So because the high school fell into Lancaster Toyota's area, they were able to take out the sponsorship with the district, and we were able to hang signs at the high school for that. So with car dealerships, it's whoever's territory you end up being in. So, but honestly, I looked a little bit today on the businesses that are out there, but until we get out there and start making contacts, you just don't know.
You guys, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, have you had any success at all in the past with national sponsors at all?
Not
They're not
at
interested in
local
school
school
districts.
districts. And
Yeah.
the problem with a national sponsor, we deal with national sponsors with the PIAA. They want to be involved with the PIAA because they get statewide exposure.
Mm-hmm.
If Nike, for example, gets involved in one school district, then that means that every school district in the United States is going to be knocking on the door and saying, I heard you gave $5,000 or $10,000 to that district, we want ours. And Nike just laughs at that.
Right.
And we've had meetings with the director of Nike's National High School group, and she said, for that reason, no big company is going to get involved with local school districts at that kind of a level. The only way really to get a bigger company involved is through somebody like a Home Team Marketing, they're another group, or a School Sports Media, they're another group, and their model is very different than ours. What they then do is they sign up as many school districts as they possibly can. And I think Home Team Marketing now is able to say that they have, 4,000 school districts across the country. And then from there, they're able to go to a major sponsor and say, you're going to be out at every one of these high schools' football games, and we'll have a PA announcement and a sign out for you, trifold sign that'll be out at these districts. And then they then send those out to the district and say, listen, we'll give you $1,000 to put these signs out for your 5 home football games and to make this announcement. And then the district gets that $1,000.
I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying I'm doing it, but would your contract prohibit us from working with them for that specific thing?
Yes. Yeah. Because it ends up that if we get somebody like the local nationwide agent to come in and be involved, if they have a State Farm, contract, they're going to come in and try and work in there. We give our sponsors exclusivity within the district, and that allows us to ask for a heavier dollar amount. And that's something that's not being done. If you go up to a now Fighting Phil's game, it's so hard to say that, but if you go up to a Fighting Phil's game and you look out at their outfield wall and count the number of financial institutions that are on that wall, you're probably going to find 9, 10, 11 of them out there between credit unions and banks. And that's one thing that we hear over and over again from these companies is, my message isn't heard if I'm one of 8 or 9. It's better to be the only one on campus and everybody knows that, okay, my local nationwide agent is the one who's helping me, or my local State Farm agent or whoever is helping my kids.
So you guys, as part of your active engagement, have you looked at combining districts to offer a larger value proposition to your
Yes.
clients?
Yes, we've had success with that. Now in the Lancaster area, we have Hempfield, Conestoga Valley, and LS, all within a close area there. So we've had a good example is the Lancaster Regional Hospital has gotten involved with this at each one of the districts. And in Lancaster, it's either Lancaster General Health or Lancaster Regional. They don't get along with one another. Just the way it is. So it ends up that Lancaster Regional, being the smaller of the 2 dogs, was able to get in at each one of the districts at a good, what they considered a good value, and now they have exposure at all 3, and they like that. So we've been able to parlay that into a multi-district sponsorship.
And how do you work that with the individual school districts? You just say, look, you're just getting this much. At the end of the day, or do you find the school districts then start perforating over their sponsors?
I've had that at 1 or 2 school districts where a district will say, hey, the local chiropractor is looking to do something, and the tough part is, I've got Hempfield on the one side. Hempfield's a much bigger district, has a lot better facilities than, say, Conestoga Valley or an LS, and the chiropractor ended up going to Hempfield. And, CV then says to us, hey, well, why did they go over there? And it wasn't our doing. We're not steering them one way or the other. They're looking at, here are the districts I have the ability to go to. This one has a higher, income level. This one has more students involved. This one has more parents involved. I want to have my exposure there. Plus, I'm closer to this district. So they gravitated towards that. It wasn't. We're not actively steering a sponsor in any direction. So if we were to get involved with you guys, we wouldn't be steering anybody to you versus Mifflin or going further out into Pottsgrove or Pottstown. We wouldn't be doing that.
What are some of the largest obstacles that you found that boards can probably do a better job of sort of clearing the way to allow this type of program to run more efficiently to accelerate and move forward?
It's a great question. The reason I got out of teaching originally, now 10 years ago, was bureaucracy more than anything else. And somebody said that to me when I first got started in teaching. They said, you're going to love the kids, you're going to love your day, your teaching, all that stuff, but it's the paperwork and all the other stuff that's going to just drag you down. And it did. And what we've learned, and now I get back involved in all these school districts. I don't know how it ever happened, but it did. There's a speed of business and there's a speed of school districts. And that is the single toughest thing to get to happen because, these sponsors, they have money, they're willing to spend it, but if you don't get that money from them fairly quickly, they're going to take it and say, well, the Reading Phillies are getting ready to start up, I better spend my money there. Or, the local little leagues are getting ready to start up, I better spend my money there. So that's the toughest part for us. We've got to get everybody to understand that there's a sense of urgency within this. And I think with the districts we've gotten involved with now, they do form smaller committees, works very, very well. The districts where it's fallen apart are the districts where, Cumberland Valley over towards the west shore of Harrisburg. We got involved with them. They put together a committee that had 14 people on it. And so I would take a sponsorship to them and I would say, guys, here's a sponsorship from the local car dealership. It's right next to the school, Cumberland Valley Motors. They want to be involved with you guys. They're willing to spend $5,000. And it would go around the table and all 14 people would have to weigh in on it. And one person would say, well, Sun Motors is right down the street, and there's another car, Bobby Rahal is down the street. Have you talked to them? Have you talked to them? Have you talked to them? And we were like, guys, they are willing to spend money with you right now. You need to move on this. Well, no, we can't move on this because you need to check with everybody first. And we were, you got to be kidding me. So they couldn't get out of their own way because they just were so, it was crazy.
Have you looked for a contractual solution to that where, if we bring you, as a school district, you say these are the types of ads we're willing to take, and if we bring it to you, you have an obligation to take it type of thing, so it's more of a rubber stamp?
I'd rather the district have control of it. I'd rather not have a rubber stamp because, ultimately it is the district's decision. It's the district's property. We can bring it to you. And it's a bad business model. We know that. We know that we put the upfront cost into it, and we know that things could fall apart. But the reality is that the district has to have final say on this because they're looking at their kids. They're looking at what's best for the kids as far as overall messaging, and also what's best for the kids as far as programs that if we're gonna raise an extra $100,000 that's going to go into the general fund. What programs are we going to be able to help with that? Is it going to keep one or two teachers still in the classroom? Those are ultimately the school district's decisions, and it's just our job to hopefully bring that revenue to you to then disperse. So I think the more control we let the school board retain, the better it is.
Small committees would do all this.
Yeah, small committees do work best. I'm convinced of that. It certainly is the way to go. But the more input we can get, the better.
Typically, well, not typically, always, committees only have the power to recommend. I don't know how this would fall into that. I mean, if the committee says, yeah, we all agree, let's wait for the next school board meeting, which is 15 days away, or 20 days away, depending on where it falls, then you're waiting again, and then...
And we make sure that the sponsors know that. ultimate ratification of anything that we do happens at a school board meeting.
Does that, well, let me, the question is more for Dr. Roddick and the rest of us. Is that a board decision, or is that, can the superintendent make that decision?
Your policy.
Okay, so.
And I don't have it in front of
You can
me.
make the decision right there.
I think there's superintendent discretion in that policy. I'd have to check.
Discretion with board oversight. So ultimately, it's the superintendent can make the decision. My recollection is, and then the board can have the final say. We can override the superintendent.
It's in the 900 somewhere.
But for the most part, I think the
Let me
superintendent.
borrow
Does
your
that
computer.
translate to we still have to wait until the next one?
I don't think
Got
so.
it.
I think, quite frankly, that's the superintendent.
And that's,
Approve the contract, you can approve the
It could
wording
happen
of
that
the
night. It could happen the night of the
advertising.
committee.
I mean, I don't think, because I think.
Well, I don't have the power to
we
ratify
wrote that,
contracts.
We didn't want to get into the micromanagement of every single ad
Right.
that came up, or everything, every single sponsor idea that came up. That's not what we're here for.
and we have that with the Dallastown School District. Their superintendent has the ultimate authority to basically say, this is something that we know the board's going to approve. Go ahead and start the process with it, get the contract written, and that way we can get everybody signed off on it, and then it can go forward through the board. At least we have something started. And knowing that, to get typical signage created takes a couple of weeks anyway, so that we can then start the process of doing the creative and everything that we need, then get the board approval, and we're already up and running.
So what are the reasons why we haven't moved forward? What are the concerns that have come out that we're trying to answer tonight?
Only thing,
Market Street?
Yeah.
This is the first
This
real
is-
connection with them, so.
Right.
Oh, I thought we had.
No,
we
this
had a
is-
meeting.
no, we had
Oh, I'm
another
sorry.
group
We already
here.
had a meeting with you.
Mm-mm.
Okay, must have another meeting.
yeah, the only difference that I'm seeing really with this group and another one is that the other one had more emphasis on educational messages that they would post in the buildings. This is more straight advertising.
School media.
Yeah.
I know.
And so
I
it,
just want to know which one will make us more money.
Well, I mean, school media right now is involved at the Pennsboro School District. I think they made promises of $400,000, and I think they've raised, I want to
30.
say, yeah,
We've already researched them.
yeah, and honestly, a lot of these companies are going to come into you, and they're going to
It
promise
wasn't
you the
even
moon.
30, as a matter of fact. I think it was considerably less.
And they're going to promise you the moon. And I would tailor expectations as much as I possibly can. And I think I've said it enough tonight. It's a moving target. You just don't know till you get in and start doing it. And it's not a faucet. It's not the kind of thing where you can go in and there are a couple of different companies out there, and the tough part is my other partner Frank is on the Penn Manor School District school board. And they had a company come in, and the company basically said to them, we can raise $200,000 with your website and all the things that we can do, and nothing's come about from it. And he doesn't want us to get involved there because he's a school board member. He doesn't want to have us sort of
I know how
in
that
school.
goes.
So I've seen that, and it's just it's tough. I mean, the economy being what it is, it's not an easy thing to do, and I think tempering expectation is the best thing you possibly could do.
I mean, my biggest dilemma would be I'd want to see your contract that we would have to be signing and have our solicitor look at it
Sure.
and go over what we would be getting into.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And make sure that there is a guarantee about damages
Mhm.
to our buildings.
Mhm.
That would be my biggest concern,
Okay.
seeing those.
Appreciate that.
Are there any questions from the public?
Just, Mr. Sermonaro asked you a question earlier about surrounding areas. And if you know this area, there's not a lot of commercial property in this area.
Right.
And I think that's what he was really getting at. Could you go to Exeter, to Stowe, to these surrounding businesses and say, would you like to advertise?
Yeah, and we would. I mean, we ideally start out and try and do something in a 5-mile radius, and then you just widen the scope of what you're doing. I'd like to say that we target in some way, but we don't. I mean, it's broadcast fishing. You're basically just throwing the net out as far as you possibly can, and I don't know your area as well as you guys do, so I would say, where do people go to buy their cars in this area? That's something we need to know. Who's the local plumber that you guys call, or electrician that you call? I mean, you all have similar folks that you would call, and that's kind of what our starting point would then be.
Even the people we do business with.
Correct.
Our bank. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't they be sponsors?
Yes, you always start with the folks who, and usually the business director gives us a list of all the folks who are, making money through the school district, the local trash hauler. Those are all folks who we want to hit up because they're also going to be doing stuff out in the public.
See, what you do is fill the void that we've always had. We've been here, I've been on this committee for probably almost 4 years, and we always hit that roadblock when it comes to execution. We all have these great ideas, but then we don't have the resources to say, well, who's going to go make those phone calls? Who's going to knock on those doors? Who's going to make that happen?
And then once you do that, who's going to write the contract up? Who's going to collect the money? Who's going to disperse the things? Who's going to collect the different program ads? I mean, my other partner, Jason, pulls his hair out on a daily basis, which is kind of funny because he's about as bald as I am. But he daily is pulling hair out because he has to deal with so many different booster clubs from 8 different school districts, and they all need their ads at the same time. So, you got to contact the sponsor and say, hey, I need an ad for girls volleyball for, 10 different sports and a theater program. And, you have to put them all together. So it's problematic. But that's what we've been able to create a market to do. Yes, ma'am.
Just a question with the booster programs. So if you were, are you literally putting together our programs?
No.
We're still putting together
You
the
still put together your programs, do what you normally would do, but what we would then do is if we're able to get, say, 5 sponsors within the district, every sponsorship that we would put together has program ads within it. So at the beginning of each season, we would ask you as a Booster Club member to contact us. We would then tell you, okay, we have these 5 sponsors, what do you typically charge for a full-page ad? And then we would give you those 5 sponsors, and you would then just place them. And so what we found at a lot of districts is that, the girls volleyball typically would send their girls out at the beginning of the season and say, go get us as many ads as you possibly can. And ultimately, they're going to the same people again and again and again and again. So we're able then to up front say, here's $500. You now have that to either cover your cost of printing or use it for your program or whatever you do. So we try and work with the booster clubs as much as we possibly can because we realize that the 5 sponsors we get would have been sponsors who probably would have taken out ads in your program anyway. So we don't want to take that money away from them.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Connor, you still there?
You can have those.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I think this is a great idea, and I really hope we can move forward with it after we review the contract.
I agree.
You guys, if we can go from there.
Yep.
All right, thanks for your time. everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
All right. You have my sheet down.
What do I need? Oh, you're.
Oh, yeah, Did
I
you
recommend
took mine, yeah, that's all right.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I just wanted to find out.
Frank, did you want one of these? Yeah, go ahead.
We're going to look over, any other questions before we get started on the next section? No? We're going to look at the administrative review for a flex schedule for the summer. And
yeah, let me just jump in. A couple of years ago, we looked at the possibility of shutting down the school district for a number of Fridays in the summer when we thought we might be able to, again, squeeze a little extra money out to use for something else. So we're revisiting that topic. So let me just tell you the research that we've done. It really wasn't that hard to do since we had fresh research, even though it was 4 years ago. The thing that ultimately stopped it 4 years ago was that we have a contract with the Pottstown Y to provide daycare service. If we were to shut down on a 5th day when the parents need 5 days of daycare in the summer, they would have had to leave the district totally, and we would have lost about $12,000 of revenue. At the time, we couldn't find enough savings to balance out the loss of that $12,000, so we just put the stop on going to a 4-day summer work week. So when we revisited it this time, we kind of did the same research. I had Mr. Smith here, and he's here tonight to talk about facilities issues and concerns and potential savings. You'll hear things, that other schools did this, that, and the other thing, and I would just preface that by saying that's all well and good for them. We have our own program, so we have to go with what ours is. So when you hear Pottstown did this or O&J did that, you have to remember we're not Pottstown and we're not O&J. We can do some things that are similar, and we think we have a plan that might be workable this time as it wasn't last time. Based on one of the things that we're looking at is getting away from calling it a 4-day work week in the summer, because I think that just kind of limits you. And I just had a conversation with the chair of the committee today to say I think we need to really construct it a little bit differently as we look at it and call it more of a flexible summer schedule. Because there are some needs that don't go away during the summer. And the issue that I alluded to in the opening comment about the Pottstown Y daycare center is still there. They have, again, I've been made contact with them, and they have represented that if they can't have at least one building 5 days a week, they would have to pull out of the district. We would lose daycare possibilities for about 50 to 60 families, and we would also lose, again, that it's still at about the same amount of revenue, about $12,000 worth of revenue. If you would couple that with, the savings that we think we can make, it wouldn't counterbalance that, so it wouldn't be in our best financial. The net would be we'd lose $2,000 more. Even if we did shut down, if they went. So it's not to our benefit to do that financially. So I certainly wouldn't recommend it under those terms. The other impediments at the time, 4 years ago, had to do with the contractual issues about kind of changing the working conditions, because our employees work X number of hours a day. If you compact that schedule, obviously that changes the number of hours a days you have to work. We think we can get a workaround around that as well, although I don't have anything official at this time. So having said that, the first issue that I think we ought to look at, tackle them one at a time, I think there are three we need to look at. The facilities concerns, and I've asked Mr. Smith, who is obviously our buildings expert here, to weigh in on that for us. Talk about, again, what we think are our needs during that period of time in the summer. Because really, when you're talking about and you say a summer flex schedule, you're talking about 9 days. There's only really 9 Fridays that we can afford to even say we can do that. So if you take it in that context, we're talking about 9 days of some sort of shutdown for certain facilities. So I'm going to let Mr. Smith do his part, and then we'll come back, and then we can kind of close this out pretty quickly and then take questions and give you my general preliminary recommendation.
What I did real quick is I took all of our 6 buildings, and basically I took last year's data off our ECAP system, and basically I came up with electricity, natural gas, water, and sewer. And basically, if we did a total shutdown for electricity, that's going in and pulling the switch gear down, we would save $17,000. We can't do that. Okay, so what I did is took 50% of that, which comes out to $8,700. I took natural gas, and a total shutdown for natural gas over the summer would be $578. Half of that would be $289. Water, we spent $2,100 on water. I took half of that, and it came out to $1,000. So basically, half a shutdown for the summertime would be approximately $10,000 that we would save in the 90 days.
Right? Less than that, even.
Less than
just
that.
added up to like 9,100.
Yep, about $9,100, about $10,000. And I really have to get a base year in so I can reference it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I need to get that base year in and see where we're at, see what we cut down on them 9 days. We still got to run the air conditioning, still got to keep the loop temperature and stuff like that.
The reason that you wouldn't want to shut a building down is because in the hot, humid summer months, certain things can happen in a building, which I don't even want to mention, and we don't want to go there. So we want to make sure that environmental kind of issues do not come up, because that could wind up costing you tons of money in the long run. So I support his recommendation as far as a half shutdown goes. So,
And that doesn't factor in if there is some organization that still needs to use the building on that 5th day.
I think we could, in the summer, I think we could control that. I don't know. That's something we'd have to look at. You don't get that kind of usage in those on Fridays in the summer as much as you would think.
But you said there was organizations like daycare or whatever that.
Well, no, there is one.
They would have to.
The Pottstown Y is the one organization that would need to have, and we would make it the AIC building.
Okay. So
AIC would remain
these
open.
Numbers account.
They already
keeping
account
them in
for
there?
that.
Yes.
They already account for that. And the other, we actually added in the Amity primary numbers, which if we eventually close it, which we're proposed to do, that really shouldn't be a number you count in that number because it's going to get closed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that number of 91 is a little soft. It could be a little less really when you think that APC might be closed anyway. So having said that,
You know what that would be? If
well, it's factored in that chart that I don't know if I gave you that. You would just subtract out the APC costs. He did compute them. As far as electric, it's significant. The rest of the costs are a little bit more minimal.
So the 9,100 does not take into account any labor, like if they take off half a day, like how is your
No, well,
staff gonna work?
let me get to that. So when we get to the other issues, if you can't save any labor costs, you have to pay people there. You can't give them less hours, unless at some point you would negotiate that. But the contract doesn't currently call for you to cut back on people's hours for 8 weeks in the summer. So there's absolutely zero labor costs that can be factored into this for now and for the foreseeable future. So that's not here. I can't show you that cost. It just you can't do it.
Putting aside the potential financial savings, if there is one, do you foresee any kind of district issues, administrative issues?
No, because part of this is what I would say. No, I really don't. I think as long as we can maintain a presence, because if you notice, we didn't recommend shutting down Matthew Brook. You would have a certain number of, myself included, the central administrative staff would be here 5 days a week anyway, barring, a vacation day here and there. And it does slow down a little bit in the summer. So as long as we have an administrative presence 5 days a week, plus with AIC open 5 days a week, I don't have I'm not really sure what your question is. I think it's getting at that, as far as coverage. Shutting down APC, let me leave APC out of it. Shutting down Birdsboro, Monocacy, the middle school and the high school on a Friday for 9 days over the summer. We talked about 4 years ago, we were concerned about deliveries and this and that. And I think if we have enough advanced planning time, we can take care of those concerns. Kenny, you can weigh in on that. We talked about those things.
Yeah,
So
we can do that.
I don't know if those are the kind of things you were referring to.
No, I just wanted to know, other than
Like mail delivery, you have to be able to make
issues that are going to cause.
No, the biggest
Problem.
one is I don't know what kind of resistance we would get from the contractual partners, but I don't think so this time. I think back then that was a little bit different time. 4 years ago was kind of a long time ago in that scenario. And to be honest with you, I think Mr. Smith, as far as his crew, although they're in the same group, I don't want to speak for them, believe that a 4-day work week is doable for them based on their workload. The other thing that you want to make sure that you don't lose sight of is that summer's a busy time. It's a very busy time from a facility standpoint, and it's a very busy time in terms of you shut the first. I always like to say the first 5 weeks of the summer are involved in shutting down the previous school year, and then you get about a week off really, and then the next 5 weeks you're gearing up to open the next school year. So there really isn't a slow time, even though the students aren't around. It's just different work. So we want to make sure that we continue to maintain the workload that we have to get done during the summer. And I don't think going to a flex schedule, which I would prefer to call it, would diminish our ability to administratively handle the tasks we need to do in the summer.
The only one organization I was concerned about was Camp Invention. They were there I wasn't sure if they were there for 4 days or 5.
4 days.
4. And so Friday, they weren't in the building?
No.
Okay, so,
We also had, remember the last time we did this, we were concerned, the 3 things came up: the extended school year for special needs kids, the summer school program for just our students making up courses, camp invention, and then we also got involved with athletics. When were they coming back? So the numbers that we just showed you represent the time period when we're in shutdown. Those extra groups aren't here, other than summer school would not be affected by this. Extended school year, I already asked, special ed would not be affected by this because they're running a 4-day program. The only one that is in need of our facility, and then they were very direct about it, was the Pottstown Y, with the contract that we have with them to maintain a presence in one building. There had been summers where they were actually in 2 buildings because they tried to balance out where their population was. There were a number of kids down here in Birdsboro and a number of kids from Amity, so they actually ran 2 sites one summer. They said they could consolidate and go into one building as long as they had advance notice. But that's a very important service in the summer for those families that need to work 5 days a week, that those kids have a place to go.
do you know which building they'll be in? Have you picked the building yet?
AIC.
AIC, we would recommend that it be an AIC, which is where it's been. That's been the traditional spot for, because we also run our ESY program. It means extended school year, which is implementing IEPs for certain students who need that service over the summer months. So I would like to make a recommendation that you allow me to approach the contractual partners and see if we can work out the details and make this happen. I mean, even if it's only $9,000, I think it's worth it. I mean, it doesn't really put a strain on us in the way that I think we had categorized this the first time. So, and if you believe that $8,000 or $9,000 is just de minimis, we can just put it away now and not move it forward. But I don't really see major impediments to doing this. But if the only thing I would like to, out of courtesy to our employees, because they're the ones most affected by this, is to get them on board with it and know that their summer might look a little different. That's probably the biggest concern that I have, frankly. Beyond that, I don't think we need to make a big announcement, or we're just saying we're flexing our work schedule in the summer and be done with it.
Okay.
So you're going to go to the union and just see if
No,
how they feel about it, and then based on that, we make a recommendation. To
well, I think, and Kenny can speak for his crew because he works more closely with them. They already seem to be on board. I just want to. It's the secretaries that are really the other half of that in those sites that would remain open, that it would impact. So if I, and frankly, I've already had a casual conversation, but I haven't really gotten it to the point of, shaking hands yet. I just wanted to make sure that the board heard it first, and then we can move forward accordingly. But as we are representing, we're scratching for every dollar, so we can offer you about $8,000 to $9,000 with this plan.
Okay.
For very little discomfort.
Well, I think $9,000 is a lot of money right now, and it's $9,000 this year. It could be more next year. Mr. Smith said it's a baseline to get our feet wet, and from that we may find that there's additional revenue to be had. Mr. Smith, would we realize any additional boost from demand response by having the buildings already shut down?
No.
No?
No. Not unless we're called on by the
specific day.
PJM and, yep,
Okay. At least it wouldn't be an impediment.
no.
In case we did get called on that day, we could shut the buildings down, 11%,
Yeah.
without impacting the kind of programming or anything else.
Yep.
But I think we can get, just as an example, one of the things that we spent so much time on last time we talked about this was, well, if you take off a sick day, is it going to be 1.2 days? And I'm going to get past that kind of stuff. I think if we sit down and have some agreements, we can get past that kind of, they seem like these little landmines that were there, and I think we can get past those kind of things.
Sure. Number of hours.
I don't even want to get into that. I think we'll work something out. I mean, the only thing that I know we have to do, I mean, in fairness to the employees, is guarantee them their regular allotted hours. You don't want to do that. You'll get into a contract issue. Beyond that, I think the rest is fairly easy to work out.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for looking into this and following up and coming to us so quickly. I think this is really something we should move forward with, and thank you for coming forward with that recommendation.
Yeah, well, it was like I said, the only thing that would have made me take my recommendation back would have been the inability to allow the Y to access our facility. So they've actually have some interest in looking further if we eventually close down APC. So I don't want to say much about that at this point, but they have, I've let them know that that is a discussion we're having now, and they are certainly interested in looking at some future possibilities there. So
That's great.
I'd like to maintain our relationship with the Pottstown Y.
Any questions from the public? No?
I would like to say, I just think it's going to be a progress in review here with Mr. Smith. I mean, he's really pushed in the summer, going through the buildings. You know how it was in the past. So kudos to Mr. Smith.
Thanks.
So he can make it happen.
Any other questions on that?
Questions? Nope.
I'm going to let Mr. Smith has to get back over to APC and check on a repair that was just made there.
Thank you for putting all that work together. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, we're going to move on.
The last one is yours.
Last one is mine, yeah, okay. What I had put together and from different discussions with at different meetings was, and this is something I had sent to the board, did everyone get my little graph on different areas of revenue from
Spreadsheet?
the spreadsheet? First the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, and then I also sent another. If you want to give one of these to Scott and to them, I don't know if I gave one.
I don't have a graph, but that's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And this came out of discussions from the last board meeting and looking at ways to increase the revenue. One was increasing the activity fee, which we need to really look at and how that will affect our program. The other one that came up during a board meeting was transportation, if they want them, yeah, sure. Somehow charging for transportation to increase the revenue there, and also some type of fee that would be connected to kindergarten. Those are just areas that are open for discussion. Something else that had come up in the last REC meeting was charging a processing fee for facilities use forms. When people actually give a form to the school to use our facility, there'll be a processing fee, and I just wrote down here a random number of $30 per form. So as I was looking through all of these different areas, and this is not a perfect way to work it, but it was just the numbers I was given. And if we start looking at how much activity fee with an increase of, I will just give an overview of, if they did an activity fee for the band, clubs, extracurriculum, if they did $125 per student. If we then charge for middle school and high school activities, which would be one sport, would be $150. And instead of charging less for each sport, we actually might, as I have here, you leave it at $150 per sport per child. That's what we're looking at to help offset the cost, which if you add how many students are participating in all the different activities, it would come up to close to $372,000 that we would be able to put toward activities. Now this is instead of getting rid of activities and sports and everything. So I'm trying to find a balance there of what we can charge this year to get more revenue in, and then in years to come, learn how to make increase revenue that will come in on a yearly basis to help offset the cost of activities. And that was my last proposal that I had out on how to make event planning group and how that works. But what I'm trying to do is just figure out how do we bring more money in on activities, and that's the first part that I want to bring up and see what people thought about.
Right now, the activity fee for bands, for the band music, is $150.
Mhm.
You would propose to reduce it to $125, but the clubs are $50, and they would go from $50 to $125.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then per sport, it would be $150 per child per sport.
So you'd be removing the $500 cap in that scenario?
Yes.
That was my next question.
The $500 cap was only utilized by 8 families. That's what Danielle had given me.
No, that's probably accurate then.
And those 8 families, however that cap was, now we also have students in there that are reduced or not paying for sports and activities due to
Right.
the lunch program.
Right.
Or based on the lunch program. So by trying to figure out how to come up with the $609,000 that we currently are spending, you know, we have to figure out how we're going to increase that revenue on the activity side with the fees. And that's, I just took Danielle's numbers, divided by the number of students she had given me, and figured out a cost that seemed to be more workable maybe for parents.
I guess the one concern that I had is when talk of the activity fee was first came to light. You know, we said, you know, as a member of the public, I said, what's going to happen is you're going to look at this as a static model, and so you could say you have 200 kids that are going out for activity fees, and you said 200 times 150. This is what my revenue is going to be. Okay, and I said, whenever you tax something, you get less of that. You know, people participate less. So let me
Go ahead.
It's what happened is in the first year, we had less students actually partake in our extracurricular activities, and we didn't even get close to the budgeted amount the first year. So my only concern, I'm not saying I reject it or that's not an opinion, I'm just saying that we're looking at that $372,000 as if no one would change their behavior and everyone would just pay the extra money for the same things that they're already doing. And I don't think that that's necessarily what would be the case.
I'm looking at nothing, so no children get to participate in anything, or bring in an increased activity fee so that we can at least have some activities. Are they going to be 100%? Maybe all the sports won't be filled. Maybe there'll be a natural, like there's just not enough kids for the chess club this year because of the cost. Does that mean, then maybe the chess club won't run this year. There won't be an activity fee. But there also won't be the stipend that goes along with the cost of having the chess club organizer. Each one of these sports has a stipend to it. You take away the sport, you take away the stipend, you lower our cost. So you're right. More kids might not be able to participate, but I'm looking at nothing right now. And so I'm just trying to weigh it out. If we have absolutely nothing, all the kids have nothing to do. So I'm just not sure. And it does sound like a lot, 150 per child per sport, and I understand, I have kids in sports and activities. I already can figure out what I'm going to owe next fall. It's not fun, but yes.
How many students are there K through 12?
K through
37 plus.
3,700. Juniata, about a year and a half ago, was looking at eliminating their kindergarten and their extracurriculars and everything else because of the budget crisis. And they came back and saved their sports program. They charged $325 to $250 per sport per kid. Is how they solved the problem. And they did eliminate some of the sports. They didn't keep all of them. They got rid of some sports altogether, and then they charged what was remaining $325 down to $250 per sport. So like cheerleading, stuff like that was around the $250 range. Football and some of the other sports that were more expensive was the $325 range.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we have a way to break all this down and to see which activities cost, what the actual cost is, and that's another way to go. If you play volleyball, you might play $350 for volleyball. Like, there's different ways to do it, but this was just one way, and hoping to open up the conversation of increasing the activities and figuring out a way to pay for our activity programs. I mean, if we want to break it down into every single sport, then I'm open to that idea too.
I think we've had sports.
I mean, the whole activity program. I don't
We've
just
had
mean sports.
Sports
But
parents in here before, and they've always commented on other activities outside of Daniel Boone. And I know for a fact with Douglasville Youth Baseball, you're paying a small fortune for that. So, I mean, I'm not saying, hey, let's raise to the limit, but is it program going to be here or no program? Obviously, you put these numbers together, and obviously with band, you know, when it was 130, 140, then all of a sudden it came down now it's
80s.
It's in the 80s.
So now we
80s.
don't have what we projected. At one point, you know, you go through that year, and say, wow, we didn't hit the goal. Now you're back again saying, program here, program not here. Then you jack it up, you're going to go increase another $100. So where do you really stop?
Well, if you look at the way our school is going anyway, when you use that, our enrollment is decreasing. So our activity number is also going to decrease in time. So to maintain what we currently have with decreasing number of students, what are we going to do 3 to 5 years from now when our numbers are down? Will we have the option to keep them again? Like right now I'm looking at from now to maybe 3 years out. Once our numbers start to enrollment goes down, then we're looking at a whole nother scenario too. That's just what I was thinking. But
it's a tough thing to say, and I realize that, but I'm a proponent of the people who utilize the services should pay, you know, and I don't think the number is correct.
Well, I was playing with them.
Yeah, I think the number is higher.
Oh, well,
And,
it probably is.
You
I'm
know,
just looking at across the board.
There could be a ton of other services, whether they're booster organizations or something else, that can help offset some of those fees. I mean, they raise money all the time anyway, and you know, maybe some of that could be helped toward reducing fees by kids doing some activities
Well,
or
that's my
whatever.
last thing I'm going to talk about is
Whatever it is, but I think if you're going to, if we're going to make an adjustment, let's make an adjustment that's really going to help, you know, keep this thing going.
I have a question. So,
yes.
you were throwing the numbers out, the activity fees, which I understand. So, is the school prohibited from having a registration fee per child per year? So, if it was $50 to register your child, if we had $3,700, it's $185,000 additional revenue a year. I'd rather, like for me personally, I look at that and I go, I'd rather pay $50 to register my child than see my taxes go up. Kind of a usage fee on top of that.
Right.
If every student gets registered, that could be $100. I don't know. If there's a price point right there somewhere that people will, you know, accept instead of seeing the taxes go up. But on top of that, in the event that you have this revenue from pay to play or whatever you want to call that, and you get this other registration fee, and you come up with this bucket of money, what does that do to you when you have to present your numbers to the state to get your money from them? Does that decrease that? Does that affect us negatively?
No.
That's not factored into what you get from the state.
So any type of revenue generation that we feel that we can do on this side of the shop, the state doesn't look at that and say, you know, Boone just put another $400,000 in their pocket for whatever reason, we can decrease their amount by
No.
300,000 or a certain percentage.
No, they don't.
There's sort of a complicated calculation that they go through, but
Of course there is.
alternate sources of revenue is not one of them. They don't look at our alternate, sources of revenue to determine that.
It probably deals with things.
It deals with a lot of factors, you know, your geographical location and just, Dr. Otto, you probably, or Mrs. Penza would know better, but I don't know what the calculation.
There's a market value. There's a multi-factor formula that they use. That a lot of it has to do with one of the biggest things that they use is the market value that they compute to factor into the equation that tells you how much your mill can generate. Some districts, a mill means a lot more than it does in other districts, just because of the business and industry that they have and things like that. When you have a business and industry move into your district, it makes that side of the equation that you're talking about a lot better. They don't care how much revenue you have coming in. At the same time, they don't care how much you don't have coming in either. So you get stuck on both ends of that. If you have good revenue, when interest rates are good and school districts are allowed to have their money sitting in banks and investing, when all that stuff tanked around 2008, we all lost a lot of money. The state doesn't care. They're not going to readjust it up as your revenue sources change.
I'm just trying to understand that.
It gets complex.
I just want to make sure that as we look at these other revenue streams, that it's not harming us.
It would be held against you.
Well, getting back to your first question, though, there's nothing that would prevent us from having a registration fee, is there?
I think there's some case law on that.
There is?
My only concern with a registration fee, and I thought we discussed it once before, was the state and the school districts have an obligation to provide a free education. I mean, we're paying taxes for it, but it's a free education. So I think if Steve was here, he would say, you can't charge a family to attend your school.
I think Twin Valley tried it and they canned
I
it.
think, but something that's not mandated by the school code, because, we can charge for anything. You can charge for taking a class, right, or going to kindergarten. And we looked at funding kindergarten with a fee, and if you remember a couple of years ago, we couldn't do that because you can't charge for it. So people had to fundraise for it in order to pay for it, and they couldn't get to whatever it cost. We had to kibosh the whole program and that whole issue. I mean, I think we should look at it again and just ask him one more time. But we may have something online, a legal opinion from him, somewhere on the electronic filing cabinet on that issue. I can't recall though, but certainly for extracurriculars because it's extra.
Right.
We can charge whatever we want for.
I mean,
I'm going to say that charging the activity, increasing the activity, whatever you have to do in key sports is going to be your main thing that you need to think about, because we're going to have a lot of people that are going to want to move out of the district if you do not have your extracurricular activities.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that.
They're going to put a for sale sign up on their house and they are going to move out, and that is not what you want. You have a lot of people, I'm a member of Mom's Club, and you have a lot of people that have young children, and they hear the buzz that's going around, and their children are not yet getting into the school district, but they are coming. And you have people that have multiple children, and if you do not have extracurricular activities, just because we're in a rural area basically, and there's nothing else for the kids to do, they're going to move.
And as we all talked about earlier, if the school doesn't offer it, you're likely to go find it somewhere else, and it's going to cost you a lot of money somewhere else anyway. So I think the conclusion, at least for me, because I have kids who are in extracurriculars, is that I'll pay the fee. If not, I'm going to go pay it to some other organization.
But based on the numbers, the fee's not enough
No, I put it on the low end because I thought, let's see what people think about an increase, because this is almost doubling what we do now. So I'm trying to figure out if people are more comfortable with charging per sport, how much it actually costs per sport.
Well, I just ran some numbers real quick, just taking the stipend and all the costs for a few sports, like high school baseball, $407 per person. High school basketball, boys, $966. High school cross country, $280 per student. High school football, $952.
But you're not taking the tickets out.
No, this is just
straight.
Taking the stipends and all the costs and divided by the number of students that participate.
It becomes prohibitive.
Well, if people are willing to pay for that, then yeah, if you're willing to pay more per sport, that's kind of that's what I want to hear. Do you just want a blanket $1,500 a year, or would you rather pay per sport?
Monica, I was going to bring up the cost per sport, because you're talking, what Mr. Wolf just said was $900 for one sport, but you were going to charge the same fee for the chess club?
Well, in the beginning, that's how the old.
You'd be having the chess club participants subsidizing the football players, and that doesn't quite seem right. And I mean, I think if a sport, if the cost is prohibitive, maybe it would be better to eliminate one sport, the cost prohibitive sport, but maintain the ones that the parents are willing to pay for.
Well, if they're willing to pay their chunk and it costs $900 to play football, then the parents pay for that football. And the chess club might only be $100 maybe.
But you did bring up one other thing. Now the football does bring in
a revenue.
Gate receipts, which should be deducted.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And that's what we would break down. And, you know, from business level, Mrs. Penza would sit there and break it out to the exact number. Whereas...
And if the number doesn't fully cover, you know, the entire activity, you know, I don't know if that means it's got to get cut. I don't know if we have to fund it 100%. I don't think I'm totally on board with that. I think there's some revenue stream that has to make up that difference,
right? And that's,
yeah. Because if we think about, well, you know, out of our tax dollars and whatever revenue we get, I mean, that should pay for a child's education. We should be able to budget that number to pay for a child's education. So any of this additional funds coming in, like Market Street or whatever we just saw, the assumption is that's there to enhance the education, which could include extracurriculars and things like that. So I don't think we have to say this is the exact amount it's going to take to run this sport, and we got to divide that up, and the parent has to pay that whole thing, because it would be, like you said, $900.
Right.
It wouldn't work out.
We have to figure that out.
But I think it's several hundred.
No, it's going to be. Okay.
Mrs. Hamill, I have a quick question. The $125 proposed fee per student, that would allow an unlimited selection of clubs like the current $50 fee does, correct?
No, it's per club, per student.
Oh, okay.
No, everything was going to be where, that's why I'm trying to get a consensus on how people would like to see this. If they don't want any sports, then we don't have to talk about it. But if we're looking at keeping programs, we need to talk about where's the comfort zone on the activity fee. Is it a straight sport fee? Is it a blanket fee? That's what I'm trying to figure out, because I just think we need to move.
I think the fee it makes sense to me that the fee would be different for different activities. And not the same across the board. And what they are, I can't answer that question. I'm not familiar enough with all those extracurriculars. But if we somehow could plot it out and say, here's all the different extracurriculars, here's the number of,
well, we have a price per.
Has done all this.
We have a price per.
Well, then we should have a number based on that. Let's just look at those numbers and
I think that's what he was just reciting.
Right.
I was going through.
He was just reciting the real numbers that we have.
Well, like for football, when you said that 952, now you also have to factor in gate at the stadium.
Right.
And maybe it's not $950, maybe it's $600.
Right.
Well, but the 100% of the football games game receipts are not for people just coming there to watch football. It's not 100%.
What is it?
Well, I mean, you got 40.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So now you're causing a problem. So that's why it either has to be all or nothing. If you break it down, you go,
right.
Okay, well, 75% came to watch football, 20% came to watch cheerleading, and 3% came to watch something. I mean, then you're going to get into those numbers. That's if you try and break it down.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean,
It'll.
we got to move forward. There's going to be obstacles in our way, and I think the issue is you're going to have to overcharge for some sports and undercharge for others. I mean, most universities do the same thing. Take, a Penn State football, for example. It brings in
Millions.
hundreds of millions of dollars a year. It doesn't cost a football program hundreds of millions of dollars to play that sport. Those funds go to support other things, the school of education or the psychology school or some other type of thing. It's the same way in Carolina basketball, or it's something else. The Penn School of Business. Those institutions bring in a ton of money because that's the value proposition for those types of schools, and people want to support those schools. And they can charge a higher fee for those types of resources, whereas some other less popular offerings need to be subsidized. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be in existence. So the chess club may, need to be subsidized by a higher paying sport. I don't know. Or cheerleading may not cost that much, but because people want to cheerlead, they may have to pay more than what the actual cost of that sport is. And those extra funds go to help offset, say, a really cost prohibitive sport like basketball at $90
ahead. I mean, that's, you just don't have a lot of kids on a basketball team, right? You have 10, something like that.
12.
12.
So, you know, there's going to have to be some sort of balance. I think as Frank is sort of
12 and then the
you're not
JVs.
going to, maybe you don't hit the maximum number per sport. It's something less than that, but you're certainly not at the minimum just break an even number either. Because quite frankly, those stipends change every year too. So unless you're going to be ready to roll change your charges every single year based on what the stipends are doing, and that may just get even more confusing for the public. So
That's really the number we should be looking at. I mean, we should go out to at least the end of those contracts and say, you know, what do those stipends look like then?
Right.
And then factor the number in now to what that would be.
Right.
Because we don't want to go through this again next year and the year after that.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
As far as the different sports and the revenue versus the expenses, maybe you could look at grouping them in categories like A, B, and C, and pricing it accordingly there, or even A and B. You know, the football and, you know, that could be in the A category, some of the clubs could be in the B category, and there could be a set fee for that group of activities. And I just wanted to say I very much agree with what Frank said, as far as making sure that the price is high enough. Everybody is, you know, up in arms and very concerned about making sure the activities stay and the sports stay. And I think you'd be better off going for a higher number, letting people be happy that they're going to keep their sports, even if maybe they're stung a little bit with that price. I think it'd be better to set that expectation instead of every single year, you know, setting it a little lower and then having to, you know, be behind the 8 ball right away. And I kind of think that this would be the year to do it because everybody realizes how, you know, how precarious it is. So I would just encourage you to make sure that number is high enough. And people that do pay for private education, like Pope John Paul, I believe it's $6.50 per sport, and you don't get any breaks. And that's, you know, at the high school level, but people that are sending their kids there, that's what they're looking at per sport.
I know I hear a lot of talk about going to clubs, and they spent $900 on a volleyball club, and it was only 2 months long. It was only one night a week, and you know, so people are willing to pay for these activities.
Youth lacrosse, I think at the Exeter Field House, I think it's like $500 for a short season for youth, you know, for youth lacrosse. So I would just encourage you not to go too low and make sure it's a good price. Let people get used to that.
I like that idea of putting all of these extracurriculars into 3 or 4 categories, pricing categories, and then at least that makes a little bit more sense out of this. And we know that certain, you know, chess club and this all fall in the category 3, and football's.
I don't know how you can justify more than doubling the club, say, per club. Like if my child's in 2 clubs, I'm looking at $250 next year. Why do I have to pay to carry other activities? That's not right. It's not right.
Well, it depends how you look at the theory of what Andrew just said as far as subsidizing. You know, you might have to do a little bit more here to help a little bit over there. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, I can take both sides of that argument.
I mean, my recollection was the cost of a club was significantly less than what was sports activity. So it may not have to be the same dollar figure. I think what Ms. Hamlin was doing was just throwing out a number as a, for instance, for solving it. That may not be the number, $125 a club.
Well, the clubs, I got these from Danielle.
Charge something else.
The activity fee for band clubs extracurricular for close to 1,500 students was $187,000. That came from Danielle. Now, how you break that up? You know, if you have to come up with $187,000 for that little portion. Then the middle school and high school activity fees for one sport only came up to $124,000. So we had to somehow figure this out. But
could we have her run those numbers for the last year of the contract?
Yeah, I think, she can do that. So, I mean, to build it out would be ideal. The next couple of years to see where these activities actually fall would be good. I was just taking what she gave me and saying, okay, what would somebody pay?
Well, I think another model you could look at with this, and I think you hinted at it, Frank, was you look at absolutely zero zero revenue from the school district and saying everybody's got to pay totally. And then you back that out as we go through the budget process and maybe more revenue becomes available based on the way the budget goes. So, for example, at the end of the day, you might say, well, the district's able to fund 20% of the cost, and that's our maximum cap. After that 20%, then you compute what everybody else is going to have to pick up. And then each year, as your budget either gets better or worse, you can fluctuate it that way. Maybe there'll be boon times again, and we will be able to fund 100% of the program and go back to just the normal activity. Who knows? So I think if you get into some kind of formula-based, to tag on what you're saying, that would at least give you direction on a yearly basis as to maybe one year it'll be better. The cost won't be, I don't think you have to lock into something that's going to be the way it is every year, because 5 years ago we weren't here. Mm-hmm. So maybe 5 years from now we won't have to be where we are now. So I think you have to have a formula-based system that's flexible enough to say maybe the district can kick in a little bit of it, maybe they can't. Maybe that's what happens as the budget develops. And then at some point you got to say, all right, well, by May, whatever, we're going to announce these prices, because May is pretty close to the end of the budget process, and pretty much where you stand. So that's just a brainstorm, me thinking out loud.
Yeah. So you're just talking
Did you want
activities and sports. You haven't even approached kindergarten.
No, that might actually wait till the finance committee gets together. But I did want to bring that up on just revenue part of it. But
I do have a question about kindergarten, Monica, since it was just mentioned. Mr. Bateman, did I hear you correctly? At last week's meeting, you said the state does not mandate kindergarten. But then tonight you're saying the state's telling you can't charge for kindergarten.
No, I don't think, what is it, forbidden. My recollection from 2 years ago, when we were having a discussion of going from full day to half day, and there was a decision had to be made by the board. And my memory isn't what it used to be, so I'd have to go back and look at our notes and look at the legal opinions that were rendered at that time to verify this. But my recollection was there was a group that came forward and said, look, we want to fundraise for some other school district managed to get a fundraising effort going. They raised a couple $100,000, something like that, to support kindergarten 100%. And we said, please go ahead and do what you can. In the interim, we're going to move forward with our steps for reducing kindergarten to half day. And but you'd have to come back with $450,000,
Yeah.
right? And they only raised 43 or 45. I don't want to say only. That's a lot of money in a short period of time, but they managed to raise about $45,000. And one of the things that came up was, well, why can't we just charge for kindergarten? Charge $2,000 a head, and that should pay for it. And I just.
So I think the answer lies,
a legal issue with that
if you have it, you can't charge for it.
Right.
It might be a different question if we don't. If we don't have it at all.
We all know the state has some screwy rules and laws and regulations, but it seems like if your choice is no kindergarten or parents being willing to pay for kindergarten, the common sense choice is to offer kindergarten.
if they're willing to pay for it.
If they're willing to pay for it.
You're going to come back.
We'd have to just double check that. I mean,
Taxes to do that.
Well, they might, but it sounds
The
like.
activities are a little different. You're talking about there's a difference between educating the child and allowing a child to pay a sport or activity and funding that. I see there's a line in the sand there.
I don't disagree, but it seems like the choice is, if you can't or people aren't willing to pay for it, it seems like we may not have it.
But the point that he's making, and I'll clarify it for you, is kindergarten and sports statutorily are in the same basket. Neither one of them is required by the state.
Right.
That's the fact. Like when he says there's some strange rules, kindergarten's not a mandate. If you take on kindergarten, you do so on, I don't want to say this negatively, but on the backs of the taxpayers. But we've all thought it's been a good program, and it is meaningful. I mean, there's good research out there to say putting kids in school for kindergarten is a good thing for them. So I don't want to get into that debate tonight. That's well beyond our scope. But from a purely legal standpoint, there is no difference between the mandate for kindergarten and the mandate for sports.
How many school districts within the state don't provide kindergarten?
I don't know of any. Harrisburg tried to, but then they put it back.
Chester, Harrisburg, Reading.
No, Reading has Reading actually has full-day kindergarten.
Yeah, but I think
You work in Reading, they have full-day.
And pre-K.
Full pre-K.
Right, well, the difference is they're also getting $50 million from the state, and they're being taken over by the state, so.
But the other question is how many more school districts are going to have to talk about getting rid of it?
Well,
Because
all of them are.
there was a young lady that stood up last week that talked about Upper Darby School District and about how they worked out their problems. And Upper Darby School District was in the Philadelphia papers 2 days ago because this year they have a $9.5 million shortfall, and now they're talking about what are they going to eliminate to make up their $9.5 million because they can't do the things they already did last year. So I don't know how many districts have eliminated it. The question is how many are going to be eliminated.
Well, that's going to be interesting because they're actually going to the public for meetings and have them come forth and say.
Yeah, they've
what
asked
do
the
you want to
public, you
eliminate?
tell us what to cut.
I like that idea.
No, that's what they're doing. They've created residential
I wrote
teams.
your name on it.
Tell us what to cut.
Well, the problem is you're going to have all the different special interests telling you to cut it. You know.
Okay.
Somewhere where you want to go.
Okay,
Like the kindergarten thing, just to end up on the kindergarten thing, I mean, the year, was it last year or the year before, where the group tried to raise
2 years
money?
ago.
2 years. They got a very late start when they finally came up with this idea to try to raise the money, and they raised $40-something thousand in that limited amount of time. The shame of it is the folks who were organizing it were all people who had children going into kindergarten. So even though they couldn't make that budget, if they kept the momentum going, they probably could have done better for future years, for like this year. But all their kids moved to first grade, and they just dropped it. So it's always tough to get somebody to kind of get their hands around it and say, let's move this thing forward. It's always some sort of special interest of one sort or another. It's just the way it is.
Even from a residential financial standpoint, now my children are grown, but my granddaughter who lives with us will be kindergarten age eligible next year. And I heard what you said about, I pay taxes, but I also know what my daughter pays for daycare, and it's a lot more than it would cost to charge for kindergarten.
Is it possible to charge like a fee for filling out the kindergarten registration papers?
Well, look, I have written down here registration fee with a question mark, and I have full day, charging for full day kindergarten written down here as well. I mean, there may, as Dr. Otto just referenced, there may be a subtle nuance between, you can't charge for between half day and full day, but if you don't have it at all, maybe you can charge. I mean,
I don't know the answer to that.
Choice between no program and program. Maybe there's a loophole with what the state requires, and that allows you to do that. I don't know. We'll have to have our
The
solicitor.
processing of the application.
We'll have to have our solicitor look at it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into that.
Was your application for kindergarten, how many?
I would just say, when you're talking about application fees to cover the cost, remember, you're going to need about $500,000 to run a kindergarten
How many
program.
were
That's a big application fee, because you have about 200 to 220 students come in, and you have to divide that 500,000 by 220 to get a per capita.
About $2,000 a student.
Yeah, it's a pretty big number. It's not.
But that's less than daycare for.
It's much easier.
Oh, no. Hey, I've paid daycare my day too. I get that. I mean, I understand that.
But I would suggest, if you find out you can charge and you decide to bring it back, you do it for full day kindergarten. You don't do the halfway measure.
That's a bigger nut.
That's $1 million.
That's $1 million.
A lot of our, we went to half day. A lot of the folks moved their children over to Immaculate Conception. I don't even know what they charge over
Yeah,
there.
$3,300.
$3,300? Really?
$3,300 for the first child, and then there's a discount after each child.
Is that half day or full day?
They're max.
They're up, they're on a waiting list.
That's full day?
It is full day, and they have 2 kindergarten classrooms, and.
I'm sure they're happy for the
there's
business.
about 28 kids in each of the classrooms. And then the first grade class this
That's
year
profit for them.
was around 30, because, some of the kids came back, and other ones who weren't planning went on. But yeah, it's $3,400, and they, it'll probably be more next year, because
Except for the
they're,
fireworks, they can't.
like everybody looking for
Yeah.
money, and they have $100
We can't get
application
insurance
fee
for our fee.
Right.
to
Yep.
just apply.
But
okay.
even
That's their
$3,500
fault.
a year is $350 a month. That's relatively inexpensive compared to not having it at all.
Okay. I want to backtrack one little bit, back to the activity fee, get off of kindergarten just for a minute, because what I wanted to do is the one thing that I was thinking about trying to organize and look at feasibility is putting together some type of, I would like to see more people working to get more fundraising instead of having so many little fundraisers going on at one time, to try to start to build a group, which I have given now. I think some of you got this form about putting together an event planning group. And that was just something I had mulled over with other people. And basically it would be a volunteer group that would help coordinate a series of fundraisers rather than a bunch of different fundraisers all at different times. I know being involved in sports and activities and band and all that, I mean, you're constantly being bombarded with fundraisers. And usually that goes back to the individual club. What I'm trying to think of is ways to help offset the activity fee that we're talking about raising and raising and raising maybe every year until we get through this time, is to figure out a way to do several fundraisers. I don't even want to call it a fundraiser, really. It's a way to put a series together to have people come to participate, and you can see the activities I wrote down. These are just ideas, an example. You would have, people would come to the REC committee meetings. We would have an activity fee director that would help coordinate these. Then you have other people. You only need about a group of 5. You don't need a group of 20 to help put activities together. My background has been in theater for years and working with box offices, live entertainment. I worked for major theater companies in Philadelphia. And this is kind of where I get this idea from, because what we do is we do a series of events that happen throughout the year. And you sell it, you're selling entertainment. You're selling a series of entertainment for people to buy on, either as a package, where they could buy the entire series for a set amount of money, or they could come and do individuals. The way I looked at it was, for each one of these activities, you would almost have, like, say, the garage band blast. Okay, that weekend would be set up for garage bands to come in. They would pay a fee to get in. It's a competition. You could charge them $200 for every band that signs up. You set up a weekend, so not only do they pay to be here, so you're not putting out money as a group, and then you have ticket sales on top of that. So you have all this revenue coming in from the band. You could say the band that's the best voted by the pop, you put in numbers, which band is the best one. The one that wins $500. Most garage bands that I know would love $500. They'd buy a new speaker. So, it's these ways to think of it as a whole way to make money, and then that money gets filtered right back into the activities so that it doesn't really go to one or the other. It helps offset all the activities, not just one thing. Yes?
How do you then split up that pool of money?
Well, if it goes into the full activities, the way I was looking at it, it was help lower what the parents are going to pay as an activity fee. So you might look at, if you get enough money, say you get $200,000 put back into the activity account, then how will that offset each individual family from having to pay more for an activity? It's just a way to help fund that. So in the future, if you get these things to go on year after year after year, they grow. And for what if you could look at, that could be the activity fund that runs all of our activities for years to come, rather than one set year.
I think that's the foundation. I mean, is there anyone here from the foundation?
Foundation, though, is more, to me, more of an educational foundation.
No,
where
I think they can do all of this.
You can do all the activities. You can do everything.
Yeah, I think the foundation, the problem we always have is we come up with these great concepts, like I said earlier, and then there's no one who executes on them, and that's the foundation should take that on.
But what if the foundation decides not to give money to the activities? Because they're independent.
Well, I think this is
And my wife is too.
And I think another thing
My wife is.
Like Project Prom, And also, because our kids, like the older kids, they don't have places to go.
Right.
And that's one of the things, especially the teenagers, the older teenagers. And Project Prom makes a lot of money because you get donations from outside. And you have different functions for the kids to do inside the building. And then another one is if you do a universal fundraiser where you do a concert where people from everywhere, all over the suburbs of Reading or Philadelphia would come to, and then you would raise even more money.
Well, these are designed for outside of our community. This is, when I look at GarageBand, it's not for Birdsboro, it's for Philly, it's for Collegeville, it's for anyone in the area that has a GarageBand to come to our facility, pay a fee to be there, and then we run the competition.
I think they're great ideas. I just don't think the school should be running it.
Well, the other thing I would
these would be volunteer, a volunteer group.
The other
Their
caution
own
I would give from an accounting standpoint is any money raised by students for their activities, for whatever it is they do, legally has to stay with them. The school district cannot put their hands on that money.
So all the activity fee money goes where?
To the school. It has to get donated.
Whatever's left, but if you have like your senior class that raises money for their prom, that can't touch the general fund of the school district. That's illegal.
Oh, well, but
you cannot.
I don't think this would be run by the students. It would be run by the school district.
Run by this group. This group would be.
Well, who's going to? I have a big who.
I disagree with it. I do. I think
that's a big question mark. Who's going to do that?
I believe that the group is that foundation. I truly believe that they're the ones that we need to work, like you said, what if the foundation doesn't give it to us? But we should be working hand in hand with the foundation. We seeded $10,000 to get that thing started. I'm sorry?
What's the guidelines of the foundation? Like, don't you have a list of guidelines that they're supposed to follow?
No, the foundation's an independent organization.
We have
they're a separate 501c3 nonprofit
member sitting as board members on the foundation. But other than that, we can't control the foundation. But we did, just to back you up, the foundation originally started several years ago, and it didn't go anywhere. And it was around the time when they were building the stadium, and that was to raise money for the stadium. And it just didn't happen. Nothing happened. And it just lay dormant for a while. We've always talked about it in this committee. It's got to get fixed. So this past year, the school board decided to help fix it. So we got someone in who knows how to get these foundations up and running. The school board said that we would loan $10,000 into that to get that foundation started and running. And but we're kind of arm's length away from it as far as the financials go. The foundation controls that. But the reason and the purpose of the existence of that foundation is to work with the school district and to help fund these things. Right.
Maybe not have your hand
So in my opinion, the reason why I pushed for it is that the foundation is that arm to do the fundraising. The school district, we've tried this for 3-4 years. The school district has nobody to do it.
See, I don't see this as a fundraiser, more as an activity outside of, like, it's almost like a sport. Like, this is almost like your entertainment, that you're bringing in people from the public to be entertained.
Same difference to
and
me.
that you could put it into ticket sales. I mean, if you're collecting tickets, you could put it back into ticket sales, which then is allowed to go through the business office.
Who would run it? Who would run that?
Well, that's why it's a volunteer. That's why I'm bringing it up.
We talked about that for years. Nobody volunteers to do it.
But maybe they will this year.
They won't.
They might.
The foundation needs to do it.
I think the foundation is great, but once again, the foundation could take 2 to 3 years. We're not up and running with
why
any.
Would it take? If volunteers,
we don't even have a director yet.
Foundation do it?
We don't even have an executive director that's going to put things into motion to get what we need done, maybe for another couple years.
All right. Well, if you can get volunteers to do it, I'm all for it.
Yeah, but if it doesn't come from the district, then who's to say, okay, well, I want this money to go towards, if I'm raising it, I would say, I want this money to go towards. If it's not coming from the district, then this nonprofit group, whatever you want to call it, they have a say where the money goes then.
Anywhere they give us the money is a good thing for us. I don't care.
But
the foundation
this is just solely.
I got the money and said, well, here you go. I just wanted to go towards this program.
Great.
Can I jump in for a
I'm okay
second?
with that.
Yeah, but
I think it
I'm
would be
looking at
great.
the activity fee, balancing out the activity fee.
I think this could be a big project for the executive director of the foundation once one is put into place. I think this would be a project for them to undertake. I know Bob New mentioned when he came in to give the presentation to the committee, having these signature events, and I think that's what these events could be. I do think the foundation could do a good job of implementing it once the foundation gets up and running. It could be a challenge for them. I think they could step up to the plate and run with this.
My only concern is if we need money to keep sports, and this was mainly to keep activities running, is the foundation going to give the money to the activities to help keep everything running that we want? Or are they going to say, we need whiteboards, we need computers, because we're going to need laptops in the next
If you choose the right executive director and you explain this is what we needed to do, then I'm sure that executive director will follow suit with what you're asking.
I just need to say this, and the foundation is not the panacea. It is going to take years for the foundation to begin to get a foothold. They can start small, and maybe we're going to raise $3,000 this year, and then maybe next thousand we have a couple big events and we get to $50,000. But if anyone is going to sit here and think the foundation is the one silver bullet, it's not going to happen. And I need to go on the record and say that.
I'm not suggesting that it's a silver.
And I wasn't saying you were.
Okay.
I'm just saying in general, because I hear that all over, because I'm kind of around the foundation a lot, and I think some unrealistic expectations are being put on what the foundation can do. And everybody just needs to take their time with that issue.
The only question I would have is, why would the foundation need to be slower than a group of volunteers?
There are legal issues that you have to iron out when you're raising money for a school. They are a 501c corporation. They have to follow certain rules. They can't just go out and shoot from the hip and do this and that. They have to follow certain rules in terms of raising money.
With a 501c, the school district can also accept donations directly.
That's correct.
So it's no different whether you have a group of volunteers working for the school district or a group of volunteers working for the foundation. I mean, I've got the old bylaws of the foundation. I'm sure you guys changed these a little bit. But the old ones, I don't know, maybe haven't changed its purpose. The purpose of the foundation, a broad-based, nonprofit community organization exclusively charitable to support the students in the school district. The purposes are, and it lists them. But it talks about the foundation's mission is to enhance academic, musical, and athletic opportunities for students. So, of the district. And so I don't, remember, these foundations aren't created to just go out and do whatever they want willy-nilly. You know, they're there to raise money for the school district, and they look for direction from the school district for specifically what we want the money for.
Exactly.
Now, they may identify some other needs and say, well, we're going to fundraise for this too, but, you know, if we clearly tell them as a school district,
No, they want that feedback.
We would need it for, you know, all
Right.
the curricular activities. That's our number one goal we want
Right.
you guys to fundraise for. Well, that's what they'll fundraise for.
And how
Yep.
much money do you think they're going to make the first year? Like, I'm just saying.
They're
Cause
not going to make it, they'll make as much money, I think, as if we tried to do it
Ourselves.
ourselves. I mean, it's the same, I think you're going to get the same people, probably the same people in this room, to be quite honest with you. We're probably looking at each other saying, oh, yeah, you'll be on it, she'll be on it, you'll be on it.
No,
I'll be on it.
I
So-
didn't think that.
But-
I didn't. I thought if you put it out there and there might be other people, like they might go home and say there might be somebody there.
There's only so many chiefs, and then you have some supporters that have hands-on the night of the function, and after that, everyone disperses. But you need to organize that core, and then drive it together, and then get the people to come out and stand behind it. But
Yeah.
it's good to select a few.
I think my issue, I always think with these types of groups, there's always a finite pool of candidates within the community that are going to actually, you know, pick up the sword and lead the charge and do the heavy lifting. Yeah, there's other people who come in and support it, but they need that leadership from that small group of people. And they tend to be the same group of people that are already the leaders in smaller activities, you know, within the community. And those, that's your resource. I think
It's 10 people. So there's research that there's about 10 committed people that do all the work. Beyond that circle
Okay.
of 10, There are,
Yeah, don't
No,
get away
I
from the
think it's
idea
fine.
itself.
I think
maybe
it's fine.
5 of them are here tonight.
You know, just trying to find ways to offset this activity fee
Right,
for parents
right.
and to keep things, that's why I presented it.
The-
To see
I-
what,
yeah, I think the idea is
There's
great.
nothing wrong with an
And there's
idea.
Suggestions, but I think who we direct them to is that group of people, in my opinion, is that group of people who's on the foundation. And, you know, they'll have my 100% support. I want to see that thing succeed.
I think it's temporary, you're going to be looking at raising fees and then try to cover
If
it.
you do all
Yeah.
these events, that's not gonna help this year. That would help the next year's activity fees, because you have these scheduled throughout the year.
right.
So it would really be offset.
But it would be you're right, it would be a building process.
I will say, I think these events are fabulous.
Yeah.
They're really creative, and I think the foundation or whoever does run that are going to need some signature events. O&J Roberts has a community foundation, and their signature event is a chili cook-off every year. That has grown, you know, every year.
But how long have they been in existence?
Over 10 years.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Well, we have to
10
start.
years. So it's-
You have to
Right.
start somewhere.
And that's what Monica's trying to do, is get
Right,
it started.
Right.
this would be
Yeah.
starting, and then
Great idea.
my thought was, you know, you start it and then you could hand it over. I mean, because this isn't a one-shot year deal. It would build. You might be able to get things started. But
I don't want the foundation feeling like we're circumventing them.
I wasn't
think we-
trying to do
No,
that.
I know you're not.
No, I wasn't
absolutely know
trying
you're
to
not.
do that.
But I don't want that unintentionally to happen. I
Uh-huh.
think we should work with the foundation on those.
this list?
I have one, the list.
Okay.
So I can bring it, we have our meeting tomorrow night.
Okay,
That's great.
okay. There's your email. I'm quick.
Your meeting is where's it at now? Is it in the high school still, the
No, the
library?
middle school library.
Middle school library?
Yeah.
That's open to the public, right?
7?
Not really. I mean,
We're kind of looking at the same 5 faces.
7 o'clock?
it's not a publicly advertised meeting, but if you want to show up, you can show up.
People know about that, honestly.
Wait a minute, if you come to a working meeting of that foundation as the public, that's going to be counterproductive. They have a lot of work to do. I don't want to keep you away, but let them get their ideas and thoughts together.
Oh, I'm just saying that I don't think a lot of people know that your foundation is out there and looking.
We are looking to, this is their 8 months just getting started. We are looking to do things. People have to be patient. I mean, and that's all I can say. You have to be patient. I know we're in a crisis, but if you push that foundation too hard, it will crumble and go away forever. So I'm going to say. I'm very adamant about that. If you push that group too hard, it'll just go away. It's 6 of your most dedicated people in the community trying to get up and get started. Their arms are going to get tired the more weight you put on them.
So what you're saying is you're not looking for any more volunteers?
No, we're always looking for more volunteers. If you want to sign up, Karen will take your name.
Okay, absolutely.
Karen will take your name, and because we do need more people that want to come and roll up their sleeves and work.
But just to clarify, right now, tomorrow night is an open meeting, correct, to the public?
Not really.
Okay,
No?
No, it's not. That's what I just said. It's not. It's a working meeting of that group. They don't have sunshine law regulations. They're a working
But I
group.
think she's inviting people to the meeting. See?
Yeah, she's
I
ready.
It's not my meeting.
I just have to say,
It's not my meeting.
glad
Okay.
about the Educational Foundation, because that was going to be one of the questions I had to ask. Because especially after seeing the one tonight and knowing that, and then what he said about there's no upfront cost associated with it. I was here last year or whenever it was when we had the guy here for the Educational Foundation, and we talked about, and you guys talked about how much it was going to cost up front, you know, to get it started and all of that. I was really excited to hear about this one tonight that isn't going to cost anything up front. You know, I think it's something that should be looked at. And my question was going to be, so where is the Educational Foundation? I haven't heard anything about it.
They're not right. They are in the. Karen, tell them where you are. I mean, it feels like.
Third Thursday, or maybe one at the library. If I'm not mistaken, you did a robocall when this started to get volunteers.
We already lost 3 people.
We did. They came to one meeting.
Where they are is they're in the.
Because of a lot of legalities with the name change, the incorporation.
Well, no, I think what happened was when people heard how hard they were going to have to work, they said, "This isn't for me."
We did have 10. I think we're down to 6 or 7.
Where they are is they're in the process of finding an executive director.
That should be done tomorrow.
And then once that's done,
We're
then
selecting
they'll-
tomorrow.
right. Which is great.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
That's the plan.
I'm sorry?
Select the executive director. The resumes went out, came in with the deadline on the 15th, and we're supposed to be selecting a candidate tomorrow.
Candidates to interview or candidates to hire?
Candidates to interview.
What?
And to hire.
What's that?
We should have one hired within 30 days.
Am I taking other ideas? Yes, I'll take an
Can
idea.
I ask, what do you guys charge for parking for seniors?
For,
For the year?
I think
don't
my
know.
daughter paid 25 to have her car on campus, is what you're saying? I think it was 25.
I think that's what I paid. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Year?
Mm-hmm.
When I hate to say, when I went to high school way back in the late 70s, we paid 40 to park our cars. Maybe that's a way to look at revenue.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's crazy. That's dirt cheap. You know, 20, 25, nothing.
I don't know.
Two kids pay that at
I mean, if we raise
Are you
everything,
sure that's the number this year?
I thought it was.
I can't remember what
I
I
thought
paid.
it was.
I don't know.
Probably
what
when
it
your kids ask you, just write a check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
don't
thought I
remember
was
what-
25. I mean,
300 cars in your parking lot, and you raise it another, $50.
Yeah. Absolutely.
well, we want to see where, personally, it's like, what are parents willing to pay? Like, if they're willing to pay everything, then,
They would.
Yep.
I think they would. I think the kids would pay it out of their own pocket. If either that or taking the big yellow thing.
Yeah. Well, that's,
Well, don't
something
forget
we
that big
might
yellow
be
thing.
able to look into.
That's not going to happen.
I agree with you. I don't hear it all the time.
And
Absolutely no.
the last thing I just wanted to bring up really was the what the feelings were about implementing the facilities form processing fee, because we had brought that up a few
Yeah,
times.
you had brought that up before.
Is that
I
something?
think it's
It's
I
time.
mean, we're expending time and effort on our part
Sure.
for someone to look at it,
Yeah. What was the? I don't remember. What was the reaction the first time you brought that up?
They didn't. They thought it wasn't necessary.
I agree with you, Monica. I think that's a good idea. It's costing us time and money.
Sign that thing.
Yeah, the member of a youth organization who submits those forms and uses them, I'd be willing to pay for them.
Okay.
Half the time I'm surprised you don't charge me for them.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm the one filling it out and writing the checks to the school district.
Right.
I see no problem with that.
And I threw a $30 figure. Is that something? At first, everyone thought. I first said 35, and that was too much. And someone said 25, and then someone said. So I just split them and said 30.
I mean, how many forms do you process? You roughly know?
Oh, I did figure that out. I mean,
We did
sometimes
that.
it runs
We
in the
did.
hundreds of forms. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, I was just,
They do a lot of forms.
But now, do they have to reissue a form? Say, like the Boy Scouts want to use something. Do they have to fill out a form each year, or they fill it out once, regardless of how many years?
Each event.
Every year.
Each event, each usage is a select form.
Each time you touch the form, you pay the
Well,
same fee.
it's going to depend on. Oh yeah, this little processing fee would be a processing fee.
Each time you touch the form.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
30.
30.
So it's
Except for us.
except for us. All right, I just
Cost
out of
me
curiosity.
$3 to pay a parking ticket online.
Yeah.
Free parking.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
I just had a suggestion, and I'm glad to see the different groups that are here, that you guys are represented, the band boosters, the sports boosters, the foundation, the DBTA, and so on and so forth. I mean, in order for the foundation, I think, to be successful, and the idea that Ms. Hamill brought forward today, we have to work as a group, and I think what that does is it grows the pie for everyone. I think in the school district for too long, everybody's been working independent of each other, and everyone's fundraising, and you're raising a little bit of money for each of your respective interests. If we pool our resources together and work together as a group, I think you can expand that 10 times, and there's going to be more than enough money to go around to all the different interest groups that we have represented. And I think there just needs to be a willingness on the part of the different groups to do that. And if there is, you have 110% of the support of the school district to help facilitate those types of events that you want to put forward. I've talked about this to other groups in the past. Other schools, they usually have one signature event a year, and they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in one night for one event, because the entire school gets behind that particular initiative. The students in the classrooms, the teachers, the principals in the buildings, they get sponsors, they get advertisers, they get the parents, the grandparents, friends, neighbors, relatives, and they get behind that event, and they will raise a significant amount of money. I think there's an opportunity for us to do that this year yet. I think we could, if we wanted to, we could plan for something maybe in September and get mobilized and start moving in that direction. And I'm glad to see everybody here. I'd like to hear some feedback on that, because I'm sorry that Ms. Condon left, because I think she'd be instrumental in helping with that type of an event. But I've witnessed it where my kids go to school, and they mobilize in February, and they launch this thing in May, and they raise $150,000. And that's a couple hundred students. It's not a big school. And they get everybody who, where they host it, donates the facility. They get people to bring donate or pay for the food, sponsors to pay for the food, sponsors to pay for the tent or the liquor or whatever else is going on. So it's a free event in terms of the school district's cost, and everything that's raised in that auction is 100% revenue to the school. So,
but would that once again be something that the foundation?
Well, I think it would.
That is what.
To have one major event a year, that's always been our plan. Because having multiple small events.
I'll have some ideas on that tomorrow. I'll have some ideas on an event tomorrow.
What Mr. Basil's saying as well is that, we all share in this together. So we're not saying, that the foundation's going to do that. Let's keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. Your role is to organize it. Then you're sitting at the table, and your role is to give feedback of what we're trying to raise. And your role is, so we're all still involved. The boosters are involved. Everyone's still involved, but everyone has a role.
Our plan is to, once we get our executive director hired, is to bring the heads of the boosters and the PTCs in, so that we all can coordinate what we're doing. We just weren't at that point yet, because we're still building, doing the bylaws and all that minutia of. Right.
Pottstown raised $50,000 a year or two ago on a local Dancing with the Stars. Pottstown also had an executive director running that thing. I'm telling you, that's a big deal, because like you people, I can tell if you're here tonight, you're the workers. That's the kind of people we need on the foundation board. Not the talkers, we need the workers. It's a working board.
I think, we have an opportunity now, while it's still February, as a group, to sit here and say, look, we're gonna do something. And then let's just pick a month and pick a date, and let's decide what we're gonna do, and then let's start mobilizing, moving towards that. It may take us a couple of weeks to get organized, but I've got a lot of friends who have mobilized the event that happens at my kids' school. They're more than willing to help out. They're more willing to just hand me the blueprint and say, this is what we do. Go do it. And we don't have to do that. We can do something else. It's not the only idea. There's lots of ideas that people may have. And I think we just need to decide what we're going to do, and then let's start moving towards it. And it's something that we get the kids in the school excited about. Up here at this level, we can deliver it down into the administration, from the administration down to the teachers and into the classroom. Get the kids excited. The kids are going to get the parents excited, and it's something the whole community, I think, can really rally around. And they know that the money's going to go to a good cause. It's going to support all these things that we're worried about losing.
This process. Ms. Fanwell last week that taxpayers. I mean, it's a loose knit organization, but we do have a communications network. And if you were to plan this one big event, I'd be more than happy to solicit volunteers to assist, to work with you. Now, how many people we would get, I don't know, but I mean, we would definitely try and support.
Even just to attend. I mean, someone wants to spend $150, get a ticket, you come, you get a meal, you get free drinks, and you participate in whatever it is. It's dancing, it's drinking, it's eating, it's like a wedding, you can do it, participate in.
But that's even the easy part, but I think we can get some people to actually work with the event. Can I make a suggestion for your budget workshop on the 27th? Now, I realize, well, it's the same issue. I realize the smaller group is easier.
I don't want you to steal my thunder here with my, with this.
Well, no, but it's easier for a small group of people to have an exchange of ideas. The meeting last week, you had a parade of people come up, basically with the words, I want.
With the genders, the first one.
I want, I want, I want. And I think for the 27th, you need to explain some of the stuff that took place here tonight, that you're not just looking for what people want to keep, but their ideas on how to keep it. Because it's a lot more than saying I want. It's how do we afford it?
Well, that was what I was hoping tonight we would get out of this meeting, was to start directing, like with the activity fee, break it down so people can see it. So if they want it, here's what we're proposing is that you pay for it. I mean, we have to bring that up eventually, that you will have to pay for this, and it's either it goes away or you pay for it. I mean, so my feeling was I wanted to talk about all these issues to see how it will impact our budget, how it will help the budget. So, like, I'm just so grateful that all of you came out tonight, because it helps getting that feeling of, okay, what can we start to look at? We can look at the utilities fee,
Mrs. Hamill.
processing. Yes.
I have a suggestion. Maybe not a suggestion, but an idea.
Okay.
Have we looked at perhaps implementing a transportation fee to sports or competitions that we use buses for, or school vans? Has that ever been floated at all?
It came up, and it was on the list I had of things to maybe talk about. I wasn't sure if tonight was going to be the best night for that, with transportation, because I wasn't sure what the most recent transportation numbers were. But yeah, that was something. I don't think it was going to be per sport or anything. It was going to be more whether we have transportation or we don't.
My suggestion,
other than for special needs. Yes.
Okay. I was specifically talking about extracurricular activities and transportation related to that. My thinking is, when we go and figure out how much we charge, one of the components that we factor into that fee is whether or not transportation is needed, and then just bundle it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I think if you start hitting individual fees.
Right, I don't want to hit people up with separate fees.
Right.
Well, you can play football for this, but we can't take you there unless you pay this.
Right.
It's got to be bundled.
Right, and that's something.
What I think what may be able to happen. Sorry, tongue-tied. Is maybe if some kids can drive, they won't have to pay the fee, and they can drive on their own. Maybe
there's some liability issues with driving.
Okay, all right.
The transportation fees aren't your biggest problem with
No.
your sports. They're almost the least of your worries with the sports folks.
Right, and that's a good suggestion to bundle it.
One small question.
Yes.
The ticket takers at sports events, are those paid positions?
People who get the
Who
ticket?
actually take the tickets?
No. Volunteers.
At all the events?
I think so. I don't know.
They're not a paid position that we have in the budget.
I don't see anyone paid to get tickets.
It might be somebody that we already pay. Right.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm sorry. I need to get going. All right.
All right, Connor. Good night.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Bye.
I mean, that was an idea I had because of my background in tickets, is to actually get people to make sure that tickets are being accounted for, that all the proper paperwork is done, because that's where there could be some leakage with money. Well, my thought about the gate fee was, if we're raising everything, like to play sports, is it really necessary to raise the gate fee too when you're paying more to play? It was just like, where is it going to give where we can't? I know families that say, I can't even go afford my family go see my daughter play volleyball because it's $6 a pop, and I have 4 kids, and
it turns into a $50 night.
Yeah, and so I was trying to look at that.
Worse than going to the movies.
So I felt like if we raise all the prices on sports, I didn't really feel that would be a great thing to do.
Have a home and away gate fee.
Yeah, yes.
We used to pay for the family pass or whatever, that they had.
Multi-pass.
The sports passes.
Mhm.
And my husband kind of told me, he says, you need to find out from somebody why they're not doing that again. Because he's not been going to basketball games. I mean, he's been going to a few, but he doesn't go to nearly the number of basketball games that he would normally go to support the team, because it's so expensive to do it,
And honestly, what I'm hearing is they go at halftime. People are starting to go at halftime because they don't have to pay. So they come in to see the end of the game. They don't go in to see the beginning. So, yeah, I don't know why they don't have the multi-pass sold more often. So there are other.
It used to be a fall sports pass, and it covered football, and then I think it even covered basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't cost effective.
No.
Some saline.
Buy
Right.
a package of games, and it's like getting, I think, one game free or 10 games. Yeah.
They also had something for the elderly.
Right. There's a golden pass. There's other things. So, but yeah, I just wasn't sure, like, where things we had to draw. I felt that there had to be some lines being drawn on what we should and shouldn't be doing. Maybe the bulk of it needs to come from the sport. So, all right. Does anyone have any questions about what we talked about tonight? Anybody?
New business. I will take it from music boosters. Chicken barbecue this weekend. Anyone, 7 o'clock, feeling lonely in the morning, a.m., be up at the high school to wrap haters.
I'll give you an apron when you come.
So, everyone come on up. I'd like to see everyone here.
She do what we do. We just order pay for the potatoes. We don't make our
You can announce your next meeting date.
Okay, when is our next meeting?
It's March 20th.
March
20th.
Okay, March 20th will be the next meeting date. Please come back out.
That should be the third Wednesday in March.
March 20th, and it'll most likely be at 7 o'clock again. And if there aren't any more questions?
The marketing guy that was here earlier, when can there be a decision made that there's no fee to it, that we go that direction and have him start looking for sponsors?
My feeling is we have to look at their contract to see really what the expectations are between the school and them.
I'm saying if he emailed you the contract Monday and said, here it is, how long would it take you to review it and say we want to go ahead?
Probably
Depends,
a month.
Probably a month.
The process is most likely would have to get voted on at the board level.
Well, you'd have to first of all report out
but I
from
mean,
this committee.
ultimately at the end, right?
Right.
So it's ultimately it's got to get voted on by the board. So the next board voting meeting is
Monday. That's not going to happen.
yeah,
not
it's this
gonna
Monday.
happen.
So it's not going to happen this Monday. It may have to wait until
Well, I'm just
30 days from now.
The next one, that whatever we need to do and make sure that he gets that contract.
Yeah.
So that the next week
Definitely.
Yeah, my hope would be that he emails it tonight.
The only issue with that is if you're trying to sell those advertisements and people know that sports are probably leaving food, you're going to have much more difficult time selling advertising on an athletic field.
Well, all I would say to that, the
Right.
budget has not, we're not done. We're not done.
This is the
They're going to
beginning.
have their work cut out for them. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming, and this meeting is adjourned
9:30.
at 9:30.